The constituents of Albuquerque City Council, District 6, indeed, the entire city of Albuquerque, state of New Mexico, everyone tuning in to watch online. And we do, I'm proud to say, have a studio audience. So this is the one time that I'm gonna let you guys make a lot of noise. Y'all make some noise. Studio audience. So we want to thank everybody who's joining us on YouTube, on Facebook, and Zoom. We have the media joining us on Zoom. And if you have joined tonight and you want to help us spread the word about what we're doing, please send out this share the live with everybody that you can think of, because it's really so important for us to participate in our governments. So we also want to thank 99.9 The Beat. They provided the audio visual for tonight, and I hope you guys can hear us really well. And they also are streaming live on the radio. So our listenership is out there hearing the questions that we're asking and the answers that are coming from our candidates for District 6 office. My name is Cathryn McGill. I'm the founder and director of the New Mexico Black Leadership Council, and we want to welcome you to the New Mexico Black Voters Collaborative International District District 6 Candidate Forum. Tonight, we're joined by 4 of our 5 candidates running for City Council District 6. Thank you all so much for being here. Now, each candidate has filed and qualified to run for office in accordance with the city and state election rules as provided by the state of New Mexico, Office of the Secretary of State. Co-moderating our forum tonight, we have myself, Cathryn McGill, and Jack Champagne, who is the director of the New Mexico Black Leadership Council UpLift Initiative. How are you doing, Jack?
I'm delighted to be here in this lovely dry heat of New Mexico.
Right?
Being from the Delta, this is a little different for me, but I will manage.
All right.
Before we introduce our candidates here, we have to start with some ground rules. So first and foremost, this is not a debate. This is a forum. You will be speaking to us and, more importantly, the broader community to present your views and your ideal policies. You will be given equal opportunity, time to answer every question presented by the moderators. There's going to be no rebuttal, no cross-questioning, nothing like that. So, once you've finished speaking your piece, you're finished, and then you will move on to the next candidate. All the questions have been screened to ensure quality, nonpartisanship, and relevance to today's forum. As a 501c3 nonprofit, we NMBLC have no position on either candidates or policies. We will not declare a winner of tonight's program, and we will not support or oppose any candidate. As I stated to you all before, electioneering here is prohibited. You thankfully complied for that, so I appreciate that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce each of our candidates. As I introduce each of you, you will be given a minute to give an opening statement. So we will start off with Kristin Raven Greene, resident of the International District, elected board member of the Elder Homestead Neighborhood Association and the Homeless Solutions Chair and Neighborhood Beautification Coordinator, in which capacity she's been involved with neighborhood cleanups and advocacy work on behalf of the residents. Please give your opening remarks.
Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for having all of us here. It is a fantastic opportunity, and it's wonderful to be able to share our views and our hopes and dreams for District 6. I'm not a politician. I'm running because I've been involved with the community now for several years, boots on the ground, working arm in arm with the residents and citizens of District 6. And this is the natural progression from that. I'm hoping to elevate all of us and bring a brighter future to District 6 because we definitely deserve one. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, our second candidate is Abel Otero, another resident of the International District. For the past 15 years, the owner-operator of Fonzie's Barbershop, prior to which he was a grants coordinator for Habitat for Humanity. Mr. Otero, please give your opening remarks.
Good evening. Thank you for having us all here. My name is Abel Otero, a long life resident of New Mexico and a resident of International District. Also have a barbershop in Nob Hill, so I do everything in District 6. I'm not obviously your typical politician. I don't look like a typical politician. I don't have the background of a typical politician. I am just a citizen of District 6 who loves my district and wants to see it thrive. We've had, walk-ins in our barbershop for the past 15 years, and I hear all the complaints about the city, but I also hear the dreams and what they want out of it, and how they think that we can improve it. And as a spokesman for their district, I want to be able to bring those ideas to the table.
Thank you very much, Mr. Otero. All right, next up, Nichole Rogers, a resident of South Los Altos. She was the second ever African-American community and business leader liaison for the city of Albuquerque, and currently serves as the Chief Impact Officer for the Wellston Foundation, a community health initiative that she founded. Please give your opening remarks.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for watching online. Thank you for those who came to visit us in person. And thank you to Mexico Black Leadership Council for this amazing opportunity. My name is Nichole Rogers. I'm running for District 6 City Councilor because I'm really sick of waiting for others in power to change things for the community. I spent the last 2.5 years at the city, and so I share the frustrations of the community, but I also do believe that if we do more collaboration with our social impact groups, all of our local government, business owners, community members, people with lived experience, we really can change things for our community. So I want to be a bridge. I want to be a bridge from community to government to be able to have an advocate. And so someone you can count on if you are having trouble accessing city services. I'm a single mom, so I understand how it is to navigate all of the different systems in order to make sure my family can thrive. And so that's what I want to help our citizens here, our residents here in District 6. So thank you.
Thank you.
There you have it. These are.
One more.
Oh, sorry. We have one more.
Yes, Jeff Hoehn, thank you so much for getting me straight on the pronunciation there. Is a graduate of UNM with a master's in public policy administration. Currently the executive director of Cuidando los Niños, an organization offering relief and intervention in childhood homelessness. Mr. Hoehn, please give your opening remarks.
Well, thank you all for having me. This is a real honor to be here with this group. Knowing how engaged people are in this election and in their democracy is truly inspiring. I'm running for city council because I know that if we come together, that we can do so much better as a city. Right now, if we look at our city, crime and homelessness are threatening to define us, and we can't have that. I'm a proven leader. For over a decade, I've run various nonprofit organizations that have been very successful and have changed communities. And I know that if I'm elected at a city council, I can bring that same skill set, that same experience, and we can do so much better as a city. Right now, we're struggling. And I had the experience and background in order to make a difference. At Cuidando los Niños, every day, I see children and families that are homeless. I don't stand on the sidelines. I've been in this work, and I see this job as city councilor as an extension of that work. So I'm here. I'm ready to lead. I know we can do better as a city. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all the candidates being here who elected to show up. We're going to begin the primary question and answer period that we have developed from the New Mexico Black Leadership Council. During this time, you'll have 2 minutes to respond. And if you'll notice, we do have a timer. So you guys were so great, like doing your opening remarks. We didn't have to say, stop talking. So thank you very much for keeping track of the time, and you can see it on the screen. There are a total of 6 questions in the primary question and answer portion, giving each of you tonight in this primary portion at least 12 minutes to tell us why you are the right person for the office. Our first set of questions is categorized under housing stability and tenant protections. According to the report of the New Mexico State Legislative Finance Committee, the largest population affected by housing instability is those who are quote unquote cost burdened, i.e. those who are currently housed, but whose housing costs consume at least 30% of their monthly income before other expenses are accounted for. This report states that this describes over 100,000 New Mexicans, a significant fraction of whom dwell in Albuquerque. This includes 60% of the International District, the most populous and diverse neighborhood in the city situated in the heart of District 6. 60% of residents in the International District are cost burdened for housing. So our first question is, please delineate the root causes of this problem. We're looking for your specific understanding of why these problems exist, particularly in the international district. And then we'd like you to specifically delineate what actionable steps you would take to address this problem using a public health approach, looking for an understanding of what that means in your capacity as a member of the City Council for District 6. The order that we will go in is Nichole Roberts will go first, Kristin Raven Greene will be second, Abel Otero will be third, and Jeff Hoehn will be fourth. And don't worry, I will remind you. Nichole, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I've knocked on a lot of doors and spent a lot of time in the community, and this is number one for our average folks in District 6. So thank you for having the data, because I love data. The root cause of problems for housing instability, and we'll start there. Housing instability, the data shows that we need housing across all income levels. And so I don't think we're having that conversation. We have a bottleneck where folks who can afford more can't find it, and they're taking homes in this bracket, and it goes down and down and down all the way down to our low income folks. I love that you had 30% of our income, because we actually know that people in District 6 are spending more like 50% of their income on rent. So that brings us to one of the things that I want to do is we have to convert renters into homeowners. And so one of the things I'd like to do is we do a lot of giving incentives and things to developers to build market rate apartments or things like that. But we don't subsidize the average person with down payment assistance, financial literacy, so that we can stop the cycle of renting. As a single mom, that is what changed my financial trajectory, and the stability for housing for my family was being able to purchase a home. So we have to talk about that and not just renting. The other are tenant protection. So we all know the City Council, because of our state laws, cannot do rent control and things of that nature. So I know, though, also from working at UNM Hospital, that housing is absolutely a public health issue. People cannot focus on any of those issues that they're facing without having a safe place to lay their head at night. And it doesn't matter what you think or your politics around homelessness. Nobody I've talked to disagrees that we need safe housing. Everybody deserves that. It is a human right. So we have to think of housing as a public health crisis, because it is. So we need to put pressure on our state to change the laws there, but we also need to do some ordinances to hold landlords accountable here in districts, in all of Albuquerque, really.
Thank you. Candidate Greene.
We absolutely do have a problem. Right now, as we all know, there is not enough housing in the city of Albuquerque. We have an estimated 1,300 to 1,800 houses that are abandoned. Myself, I would advocate for bringing these back online, however we need to procure them. We have a few avenues that are open to us. Bringing those back online, getting them renovated, and selling them through either grant programs, federal grant programs, HUD mortgage programs, et cetera. We can get our residents into housing, and we can get, as an added bonus, those abandoned homes that are nuisance properties off of our plate, so we have safer neighborhoods as well. I advocate for rent stabilization. Rent control is a problem here in New Mexico, but rent stabilization would allow landlords to adjust the cost of their rentals based on like 3% every year. Everyone's mortgages go up. So by allowing landlords to not start going underwater, as can happen with rent control, we allow them to be able to increase rent responsibly to offset their costs. But rent stabilization does not allow what we're seeing right now, where I have talked to, I don't even know how, having $250, $500, sometimes $1,000, their rent is going up because we don't have stabilization in place to prevent landlords from being predatory in gouging their tenants. So when we have insufficient numbers of houses, and we have what stock we have more often than not being more expensive than people can afford, we're seeing people going underwater, and this leads to homelessness or precariously housed people. One thing I would very much advocate for is mixed income, mixed use housing, and allowing our communities to be more diverse instead of single income or segregated units.
Candidate Otero.
So homelessness is a big issue. Housing a big issue. Coming from the streets, I lived homeless when I was a youth. When I was about 16, I lived in the streets. I was also an addict in the streets at the time. One problem that we have is we have so many homeless youth in APS that we really need to focus on. One of the things that we could do is try to find if they have families in them with them, or if they're single. I do know of one child who a friend of mine took him in. He was a sophomore in high school. Both of his parents had passed away of COVID, and he had no family or no one here, so they took him in. He was fortunate enough. A lot of kids don't have that. And a lot of kids end up in the street, but they still want to finish. What we could do is we could do some kind of housing for them, like dormitory housing for them, and get them, make sure they get their education and tie them with apprenticeship programs through the city, and tie apprenticeship programs through CNM and through the unions, so they can get careers, and it slows down the next generation of homeless going into homelessness. When it comes to adult homelessness, we need more programs for them. We need to go out to the community. We can't expect them to go to where the programs are at the city. When I was in the streets, they offered some programs in the city, but as a homeless junkie, you don't want to go to City Hall because there's people at City Hall that you do not want to see. So if we can do wraparound services, mobile wraparound services to get the services to the community, then that would help that community. We're not going to eliminate homelessness, but we can combat it, and we can work towards an elimination of homelessness. A shelter is a human right. Food is a human right. Medical is a human right. We have to focus that. We got to bring compassion, and we got to bring community back into government.
Candidate Hoehn.
Well, those are all great points. Look, it's a supply and demand issue. We just don't have enough housing. And when you have that situation, other folks who can pay more are going to pay more, and those who can't pay that rent aren't going to be able to pay it. At Cuidado Los Niños, every day we see families either forced out of housing up as the rent's gone up and they can't afford it. It's a crying shame in Albuquerque that you must first be unhoused in order to get housed. So there are things that we can do. First, we can invest in eviction prevention programming. So what this means is if someone comes to a month's rent and they can't pay it, and then we help them pay it so they don't end up being on the streets in the first place. That's how we break the cycle of homelessness in Albuquerque. It considers that in the zoning ordinance, there's a rule that says any new housing has to be 25% affordable housing. Well, there's an in lieu of rule that got changed about a year later, which means that if developer pays $5,000 a unit, then they can buy out of the affordable housing rule. We need to close that loophole so that our developments that are built across Albuquerque are mixed income, because what data shows time and time again is the way folks that are lower income actually rise up is they rub elbows with those from a different economic class. And right now in Albuquerque, our developers are building, it's houses, it's apartments, it's condos, and there's no affordable housing. We need to change that. The housing first model is great, but the simple fact is it was last time it was the 1970s when we made any investments in affordable housing in this country. Albuquerque needs to make those investments again and make them on a real scale so that we have a city which everyone can live in. So those are just a couple of things, right? So eviction prevention, let's get rid of the rule where they can buy out of building affordable housing in new units together and mixed use housing. That's how we change things. It would solve our problems, and it's something that we can actually do in our city budget right now in the coming year.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your thoughtful answers. We're going to move to economic development as our next subject. Over the past year, there's been a disturbing trend of businesses withdrawing from the International District. Walmart, Walgreens, Family Dollar, Dollar Store, and Allsup's, to name a few of them. So our question is, to what do you attribute these business closures, and what specific actionable steps will you take to stem this tide? We would like you to be as specific as possible in the response. Let us know what in your background gives you guidance on how to address the issue. Our candidate order is going to be Kristin Raven Greene will start, then it will be Abel Otero, then Jeff Hoehn, and then finally Nichole Rogers. Candidate Greene, go ahead and start, please.
We are seeing businesses closing because we are seeing an astronomical meteor rise in crime and the attendant problems that it brings. we're seeing on Central Avenue, especially, we have a Walgreens nearby closing. We had a Walmart adjacent to it that has closed now. Crime is being touted as one of the biggest reasons for why that shut down. We're also seeing large encampments forming around these buildings, which is also attracting more issues. I know that we have had to answer the call several times about problems in businesses where, especially like a Walmart in our neighborhood, 5 years now, we've been dealing with an open air drug market, open prostitution encampments, and we have had little to no response from the city and code enforcement for shutting it down. So we're seeing this same type of thing is creating a ripple effect, and across District 6, we're seeing business closures, and we're seeing businesses being blamed for these problems, which I think is patently unfair. Economic development and reinvestment in District 6 is one of the cornerstones of my campaign. I am a firm believer that by utilizing grants and opportunity zones, and there's money out there, Main Street programs, federal programs as well, we can begin to reinvest in our business corridors, especially ones like San Mateo, which used to be very thriving with businesses before Walmart came in, and Route 66, which is a historic gem that we are not properly taking care of. So by reinvesting, we can start by going in, fixing our sidewalks, fixing our roads, putting in landscaping, putting in green spaces and trees, making the area more attractive to businesses, using grant money, federal money, Main Street money, etc., to appeal to our artistic class that we have here, homegrown artists and local entrepreneurs that we can be helping to get them back into business for themselves. Smart economic development, while not a silver bullet, is key to reducing crime, poverty, and homelessness. The healthier your economy is, the healthier your community is. And this is something that I absolutely believe in, and we'll do everything.
Afraid you're at time.
And you know what? I want to play the let's move the mic closer game. We're getting some comments that we need to move the mics a little closer. And maybe you guys, you know, as I talk to my students about, you could use a little bit of your outside voice. Okay.
All right, Mr. Otero, you're up next.
Okay, so when it comes to economic development, a lot of the businesses closing down, which was Walmart, Walgreens, things like that, you know, they're calling District 6 the food desert now. But it's not just a food desert. It's a clothing desert, a pharmacy desert, a school supply desert. So many people rely on the Walmart, the Walgreens to get their stuff because it's affordable. What we could do is we could offer incentives to move in local businesses back into that place. And we should focus on local business, making that thrive. That's going to bring up, when the economy is doing good, we're all doing good. We need to focus on giving them incentives. And I'll give you an example. I talked to John's Pharmacy, who is a local pharmacy here, family-owned pharmacy, and asked them if the city was to be able to give them some kind of incentives to move into District 6, into where the Walmart is. Would you be willing to do it? And they were in. They said if we can get some kind of incentives. The city has to step up and partner with the businesses to bring them in. We can't just expect them to come in and get it all done. We also need infrastructure. We need to get out there. We need to make sure that we take care of the streets. We take care of the of the medians. We need to take care of the sidewalks. We need to make sure the trash is picked up. We need to focus more on the infrastructure and cleaning up District 6. You could put a beautiful library in it and you can change some names and call it the International District, but until you get to the root of the problem and bring economics in there, bring money in there, then you're really not going to heal anything. And those one thing that we need to do is we need to work on working with local business, partnering with local businesses to make sure that we can get them in there and start bringing up the economy in District 6.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hoehn, you're up next.
All right, look, you know, crime and homelessness are the reasons that I think all these businesses are moving out. If people are shoplifting in your store every day, if your customers don't feel safe, then they're not going to come into your storefront. If there's tents out in front of your store and people are using drugs openly, then people are not going to come in your store. So the root cause of this is basically the crime and homelessness that we're seeing in the district. So here are some ideas and some answers to it. One, we need to bring in our police, our transit police, everyone in a uniform, get priority one, our reporters on the street, and start reporting everything that's happening. We need to bring in the mobile command units where the police come in, they meet with the community, they meet with the business owners, and they let them know, hey, like we all agree there's a problem, and we're going to be right here 24/7 for 30, 60, or 90 days really here to disrupt the cycle of crime and push it out. The other thing we have to do is, we need to make the same kind of investments on the east side of San Mateo the same kind of investments on the east side as on the west side. Street lights, green space, trees, trash cans, curb and gutter. All of these things make a neighborhood appealing both to live in and also to run a business in. For me, it's a matter of equity. We need to make those investments so that everyone on the east side of San Mateo has everything they need. So it's the preconditions for success if you're a business owner. Look, I love businesses. I live in the Nob Hill area. I see them thrive every day. And what makes Route 66 great, what makes our district great, are the rooftops of the businesses. We want both. And I think if we come together as a community around these common sense ideas, and that we can walk and chew gum at the same time, our businesses will thrive if they are safe and clean. And we can help our homeless folks so they don't have to camp in front of a business. This is how we make a difference. This is how we have a real community of houses and business owners who come together to make a better Albuquerque. I know we can do it. We just have to make the investment and take the time.
All right, thank you. Ms. Rogers, you're last.
Thank you so much. So I want to be specific about what I think is, not what I think, what I've heard from business owners who have closed businesses in our District 6. One is organized retail crime. So let's be specific. When we just say blanket crime and homelessness, we need to be more specific. What business owners are combating is organized retail crime. So places like Walmart, places like Griff's that have closed, even Walgreens, those places have survived in this community for years and years with people who didn't have what they need, which is poverty and shoplifting. But that's not what they're seeing now. What they're seeing are organized retail crime rings that are coming in, and their top of priority for them is the safety of their customers and their workers. When they cannot provide those things, that makes it hard for them to do business here. Now, we talk about economic development, and that is business owners, right? But they're not the ones who are suffering from poverty. In this community, in District 6, our poverty is housed heavily in all of Bernalillo County in District 6. So another actionable things that we need to do as the city, we need an office of economic empowerment. What that does is that changes the thinking from, yes, we need to support our businesses, absolutely, but we need to support the residents of District 6 who do not have what they need to survive. And that economic empowerment means, yeah, we do rental assistance, but we did that. But we didn't have people with a plan so that they didn't end up in the same position a year later. And that's exactly what we're seeing after rental assistance. Millions of dollars that went out for rental assistance. But as a financial planner, I was screaming in City Hall where people are going to be in the same situation if we don't come in with some education and a plan to help our families get what they need. So we need economic empowerment as well as economic development, and working together to bring those two things to fruition.
Thank you all. Our next set of questions are focused on voting and political participation. So data from our general election in 2022 shows that voter participation in areas like the Northeast Heights was much stronger than in the area encompassing District 6, with many areas in the district reflecting participation around the 25% margin of registered voters. Much of this non-participation was centered in the International District, the most populous and diverse neighborhood in the state of New Mexico. Our question is, as a candidate to represent District 6, do you perceive this as an issue? And what steps, if any, have you undertaken in this area to alleviate the gap in participation? And finally, what more could you do as an elected member of the City Council? Our order for this particular question, you'll have 2 minutes to respond, is Candidate Otero, Candidate Hoehn, Candidate Rogers, and Candidate Greene, beginning with you, Candidate Otero.
So in District 6, we do have lower voting turnout in District 6, especially the International District. A lot of it has to do with housing. There's a lot more renters in there. A lot of it has to do with the minorities that are in there. A lot of it has to do with the immigrants that move in there and are afraid to take the step, don't know how to take the step to get registered to vote. As City Council, we can go out there and we can set up registration booths in District 6 and talk to them about registration, talk to them how to register, show them how to get there. A lot of them do it because they don't have an ID, so they don't have a way to register to vote. We can show them processes and how to get their IDs on how to vote, and show them the voting sites. Those are things that we could do. What I do is I go and I talk to people in District 6 and I ask them if they're not registered to vote, or if they need help registering to vote, that give them the ideas of where they can go register to vote. If they want, we can bring them a package to get them registered to vote. I think voting is one of the most powerful tools that we have. And I think that we should really, I always say, I want to be voted for, but I really don't care who you vote for as long as you go out and vote to make your voice heard. And if we can go out and we can get people registered to vote, then we can get their voices heard.
Thank you. We have a couple of minutes. Can you tell us what you've done? You have like 25 seconds. What have you actually done?
I have actually gone out there and I walk around District 6, and I've done this even before I decided to run, because voting has always been a very big thing for me. So I go out to District 6 and I go and ask people what they need to be able to come out and vote. Do they need me to bring them, to get them registered? Do we need, if they don't have access to internet, I will take my phone and I will show them how to do it on their phone. So that's what I have done to try to get people out to register to vote.
Candidate Hoehn.
Great. Well, thank you. All of us have been walking and we've all pulled a voter list. And when you walk around certain parts of our district, it's very apparent that the voters are very few and far between. I believe that's a product of politicians who haven't kept their promises. Promises have been made time and time again for development and improvement on the east side of Central, and those promises have not been kept, and those folks feel disenfranchised. They feel like it's going to be a lie this time, just like it was last time. So I think it starts with any or all of us actually keeping our promises to the voters, so that if we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. So I think that is the root cause is politicians who just don't tell the truth. When I walk around and talk to people, we ask them if they know neighbors who are registered to vote or not registered to vote. And it is incredible how many people simply are not registered to vote. They feel like this democracy is not for them. They feel like good people don't run for office. And what I always tell them is, look, I'm someone just like you, right? So I run a nonprofit. I never thought I'd be sitting here today, but I stepped in, and I'm asking you to step in and step up too. So our campaign has developed, it's kind of a pocket card that each of our walkers carry. We're proofing it right now, and that is instructions on how to vote. It'll have a link on a link to all the voter registration sites, all the voting sites, and we are going to encourage people to vote because, it's not just city council on the election. It's right. There's bonds, there's a MAFCA, there's a lot of important things on there which affect your city. So we're telling people, look, even if you don't vote for us for city council, there's bonds on there. There's other people who we have to vote on. This is how we change our city. And if we expect a better city, then we have to vote and we have to be part of the process. My campaign is committed to registering as many voters as we can and really bringing people out and as many first-time voters as possible. For me, our democracy is dependent on this, and I am truly committed to making sure that everyone votes in our district.
Thank you. Candidate Rogers.
Thank you. I'm very happy for this question because as a woman of color who identifies as Black and Hispanic, this is super important to me. So let's break it down. District 6 has 33,000 registered voters. Okay, and the population of District 6 is about 60,000. So that's about half of the folks. So we have a lot of registered voters, but only 7,759 of them voted in the last city council election. That tells me two things. We just read in the data that NMBLC showed that 60% of the residents of District 6 are cost burdened, right? So they're more busy worrying about how they're going to pay their rent, how they're going to put food on the table, what they're going to do to support their families. So keeping up with what's happening in local elections is the last thing on their mind. What that means is we have to get out there, and what my campaign specifically has done, and from day one, is I picked a team who are people of color. I picked a team that spoke multiple languages so that our literature can be given in multiple languages, because there is a misconception. And I walked the district and saw volunteers from other campaigns who passed up Spanish speakers every single time. And I would not do that. We won't do that. We have champions that speak other languages that can go out and reach voters who speak different languages. The other thing is we have to help those who their voter rights have been restored, because we have to educate folks about the changes to our voting laws. So I'm the only candidate that has a mailer that has all the voting information on the mailer, so that folks can be educated about where they can register, where they can vote, when the dates are, because it's important, not just, hey, it's me, I'm Nichole, but it's also, here's the information so you can have a plan and make a plan to go and vote. The last thing I'll say about that is we can, because there's so many candidates, we can absolutely increase our voter turnout, and every single candidate should be worried about that and focused on that, because that's how we're going to change the face of democracy for District 6.
Candidate Greene.
There have been a lot of great points brought up and a lot of data. Lack of voting is absolutely an issue. It is undeniable. One thing that I have seen, I've been in countless meetings long before City Council race even came up. I've been involved in community meetings. I've been involved in City Council meetings speaking on behalf of District 6. I've been in many people's ear. One thing I've heard over and over again is there seems to be a dismissal of this area because of the fact that the voter turnout is so low, where there are so few people that are registered to vote. And it drove me crazy to the point where I decided to go out about a year ago and I became a registrar to help people to vote. I'm going to try not to get emotional, because one of my absolute favorite people registered to vote 3 days before turning 90. And she passed away 3 days ago before early voting started. And to me, it's devastating. She was so proud to finally be registered to vote. So I have gotten out there. I have been registering people to vote, and we are working very hard through the Elder Homestead Neighborhood Association to reach out to other neighborhood associations to continue to get out the vote, to get people engaged, because we do see more often than not, many of the people that I've spoken to out knocking doors, yes, but again, in community meetings long before City Council race, I have heard over and over again, I don't have the ability. I am so busy working. We have residents that are working 2 and 3 jobs to keep their heads above water. They don't have the privilege that I have to be able to work and make my schedule the way that I do. I'm in an industry that can pay very well. I can take the time to get involved in my neighborhood association, become a board member, and do the things on behalf of my community. And that is not something that everyone has the luxury of doing. So I will do everything I can to continue to help people to get registered to vote and to get the word out there, because voting is our voice and we all need that voice.
Thank you very much, candidates. So our next question is going to be centered around non-electoral participation in politics. So we're constantly hearing that the community has a role in governance. However, in the passage and failure of previous ordinances before the City Council, several city officials have expressed the belief that the failure of the community to adequately make their voices heard during the deliberative process was a key factor in the success and failure of these ordinances. In some cases, it's because there's no outreach and education efforts outside of traditional methods, such as paper news. So our question is, how do you intend to respond to and encourage community voice in the development of policy in your role as a city councilor? And also, what non-conventional methods of outreach and education would you employ to have authentic participation in the deliberative process? So you will have 2 minutes to respond to this. We will start with candidate Hoehn, then Ms. Rogers, then Ms. Greene, and then Mr. Otero. Mr. Hoehn, please start.
Well, thank you for the question. All too often we hear about a decision that's been made, or an ordinance which has been passed, and we're told, well, there was community input. And we all say, so where did that happen? I wasn't part of that. So as your city councilor, one thing that I would do is I would have a monthly meeting. It would be Zoom or in person, where all the members of the district, I could come together, ask questions, and share these issues. I can't say that we would solve all the issues in that meeting, but that would spur all the subsequent meetings. So as your city councilor, you have my commitment to making sure that every single thing that comes up in our city, I talk about with our community. I am the candidate that will listen and not just talk at you every day. In the knockings, and going door to doors, people have really, really good ideas. And as elected officials, it is incumbent upon us in a democracy to listen to those ideas. Here's the other thing. Our city budget is, $1.4 billion. It's a huge amount of money. I would set up a system about 6 months out where everyone in our district could participate in our budgeting process, where we would explain the budget, we would show it to folks so they were educated on it. And then as we went into the budgeting process, I would take all that into account. All too often, our city councilors go into budget season They talk to the other counselors, they talk to their stakeholders, but they don't talk to the community. That would be the single biggest difference I would make is everyone in District 6 I would have a say in our budget. I would want to hear from you. The other thing I think we could do is, we have 22, so in the district, the neighborhood associations, there's almost 22 of them. I would want to have every single one of them active and involved and ask every single neighborhood association, what does your neighborhood want? What is it that you need? Because I know that if I listen to folks in our district, we'll have better results than if I just come up with a bunch of my own ideas. So those are a couple of things. One, there'd be a monthly meeting. Two, the budget would be a participatory process with our district. And three, I would call on all neighborhood associations to tell me what's happening in their neighborhoods.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ms. Rogers, you're next.
Thank you. So right now we have working in the city for the last 2 years. I've seen how we're not great at community engagement. Let's just be real. So one example of that is our legislation around source of income for renters that says a landlord cannot discriminate based on your source of income. So if it's a voucher, if it's Section 8, they cannot say no. I don't know how many community members I talked to about this ordinance. They have no clue that this even exists. So we absolutely, the education and outreach needs to be us getting out of City Hall and getting into the community. And I've done that. When I was at the city, we hosted 23 block parties in a row, specifically to dispatch resources directly to the people. Now, I learned from the Government Alliance of Racial Equity about a spectrum of engagement. And I use this as my true north for my work at the city, and which means the spectrum goes from 0 to 5. 0 is what I've heard described here, where we have our plan, we come to you to get the input about the plan, and then we go back and make our own decisions. And we'll take your input into account, right? That's the opposite. What we need is number 5, which is the community has ownership, which means we go to the community and say, hey, y'all, budget season's happening, which happens about this time of year because it has to go to City Council in April. We need you to give us input on where we should be putting your tax dollars to work for our community. And so that starts with ownership. And then we actually come up with a plan together that doesn't need to be vetted because the community has ownership from the beginning. But government's scared to do that because once you give community power to make those decisions for their neighborhoods, then we have to be transparent about what's happening with that information and about how we're implementing. And transparency is something that goes hand in hand with community engagement. If we don't feel like we come to meetings and we tell you and nothing happens, we don't know what happened with that information, we stop engaging. And that's what we have to change. And we have to get out of City Hall and get into the community to do that.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Greene, you're next.
Thank you again for this question. I have been involved in city council meetings, again, like I said, for years, and it is absolutely amazing to me on how little of the information is actually getting out there to the people. We have been involved in my neighborhood association with several of the neighborhood associations around this area. Most of us met when the gateway was coming online. So all of our NAs have been together, have been talking, have been sharing information, and every neighborhood association person that has come to the table has brought a piece of the puzzle. And it's amazing when you have a box of pieces, just the picture that comes out of that. Getting involved in city council years ago, I have spoken on behalf of our district. I have heard several things that many people have said, I wasn't even aware of this. We're not being transparent. We're not letting people know in the community what's going on. The city is not getting that information out there and disseminating it. There is not transparency. We as a city council, we as a city, it is our responsibility to get the information out to people. I am a big believer that getting the neighborhood associations back up on board, there is a weakening of neighborhood associations happening right now. The ONC, which is the Office of Neighborhood Coordination, is losing power as we go along. And we need to stop that. We need to stem that tide. We need to get the powers back to the neighborhood associations. And we need to get the neighborhood associations built back up again and into the community and getting people involved, whether it's by Zoom for accessibility or in person. Because as we come together, we do share ideas, we get stronger with those ideas, and a neighborhood association that gets with other neighborhood associations creates a tide that the city cannot ignore. So my big thing is getting everybody together, sharing ideas, sharing information, because when you have people from across a large district such as this sharing information, it disseminates a lot faster. Transparency occurs. City council needs to listen to the people, and the people have the power.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Otero, you're last.
So what we need to do in order to get the community involved is we need to go out and ask them to be involved. We can't just expect them to be involved. We need to set up community meetings with all the city councilors, including the mayor. We need partnerships with nonprofits, partnerships with churches, partnerships with neighborhood associations to sit down with them and tell us what they need. In order for us to get stuff done in the city, we need to know what. Right now, there is so much division in city council with everybody blaming everybody and pointing fingers at this person and that person and that person. No one wants to put all their differences aside, come to the table and just sit down and work for what's best for the community. And in order to do that, we have to bring the community in our meetings also, so they can understand, we can understand what they need. I try to go all over to try to find out people's different ideas, but sometimes I can't make it. So partnering with neighborhood associations to get to know what that neighborhood needs. I go up to Mesa del Sol, but I'm not at Mesa del Sol all the time. So partnering with Mesa del Sol, find out what they need up there. Partnering with Los Altos, partnering with International District, with Nob Hill, Ridgecrest, to find out what everybody needs, because everybody in the district has different needs. Like you said, we are the most diverse district economically and socially. We are the most diverse district there is. So we have to find out everybody's needs in that district, not just a certain neighborhood's needs. And I think working with city council, 9 city councilors and a mayor, all of us putting our brains together, we can come up with ideas on how to get the community involved. And that's what we need to do. Put differences aside and work together with the community to get them involved in partnerships.
Thank you. So our next question regards divisions in the District 6 community. S.E. Hinton described in her novel, The Outsiders, a stark social divide in a big city between the well-heeled, preppy socials and the working class, dispossessed, quote-unquote, greasers. District 6 encompasses both the International District and Nob Hill, 2 neighborhoods that mirror this division, and as a result, often see their interests as contradictory and mutually exclusive. Can you identify issue areas, this is the question, where this distinction holds true? As a member of the City Council representing all of District 6, how do you intend to bridge this perceived chasm and properly represent all constituencies? And our order for this 2-minute response, we'll start with Candidate Rogers, Candidate Greene, Candidate Otero, and last Candidate Hoehn. Candidate Rogers, please.
Ooh, this is a deep one, y'all. Thank you for asking this question. So I live east of San Mateo. I'm on Central and the Generals. So y'all know where I'm at, okay? It's this, so this is big. When I go in my neighborhood and I'm knocking, I'm hearing very different needs than when I'm in Nob Hill, for instance, knocking. And we know that residents of Nob Hill have organized and been loud and involved and tend to get a lot of the resources. For example, why did the streetlights stop at Louisiana on Central? Okay, you see nice ones in Nob Hill that are solar powered, they're really pretty, and you go down to past San Mateo towards Louisiana, the State Fair has put some really nice white ones there, but you get to Louisiana and it stops. And you wonder why we have encampments heavily in our area. Our streets are dark. Research shows, I love research and data, research shows that if we don't have well-lit streets, these are the types of things that'll happen. So we have to get simple infrastructure things that we can fund, like street lights. That's number one. Number two, we have to use data to make decisions about where it should go, not who screams the loudest for those resources. So one of those is our university command. We just opened a university command that's going to lower wait times supposedly for Nob Hill. But we know we have an officer shortage. So think about it. Where do those officers come from? Southeast Command Center and other areas in the district. We know that we have to have the same level of resources. We deserve the same level of resources in District 6. My parents live on the west side. Their roads get paved every year, regardless of if they need them or not. I live in District 6 in my neighborhood. I've seen them paved once, and that's after we organized with the community to call risk management and file claims before they would fix our roads.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Green.
I'm going to try not to have an aneurysm while I'm answering this one, simply because this is something that I have been, I will just say, yelling about for a very long time. The division in District 6 is real. The haves, the have-nots is real. The invisible red line sits right on San Mateo. You cannot deny that the money continually flows toward the hills and not away from it. Just for example, one of the things I've brought up several times now is the Vision Zero dollars. We had Vision Zero dollars that were brought into Albuquerque. We have the deadliest stretch of pedestrian roadway, which is Route 66, Central Avenue. And I believe his name was Pat Montoya. He was in the mayor's office, and I think it was about 2 years ago, turned around and justified not one thin dime going to Central Avenue as you've seen it, it's rough down there. But instead, we saw 3 applications of dollars to the lead coal corridor. Not saying that they don't need it, because lead coal corridor is very dangerous, but 3 times that we fiddled with lights, and 3 times we put money in there to figure things out to the west, but nothing to the east. We need to spread the butter on the toast a little bit more than we have been. But one of the things that I have noticed knocking doors and speaking to people in meetings is we have the same problems. We are all dealing with crime. It doesn't stay, the issues don't stay contained to the have-nots. They spread everywhere. And I believe that we can address the chasm simply because we are all facing the same problems. The problems, like I said, do not stay contained. So we're all dealing with things. By reallocating funds evenly across the district, we're going to go a long way to seeing things even out with people's perceptions of our district in general. So that is one thing that I will absolutely advocate for. I see that we're about to run out of time. So that's what I would say. We need to spread it around, because we all have needs. We all have issues, both sides. So I don't want to say that I'm going to take from Nob Hill to give to the ID. We need to be more judicious.
Candidate Otero.
So being a resident of the International District, I'm at Trumbull in Wyoming. So that's kind of like, pretty, we all see the division. We all see the division between Nob Hill, Ridgecrest, University area, and what I call the drop off, which is San Mateo. People tend to want to, especially the city government wants to tend to pretend that east of San Mateo doesn't exist, right? East of San Mateo, south of Lomas, that it just doesn't exist. It's just not there. We'll just kind of forget about it. Well, what we need to do is we need to spread any money that comes into that district evenly. Not to say that Nob Hill doesn't need anything, because Nob Hill has a lot of businesses and a lot of local businesses and a lot of restaurants. A lot of people go there. A lot of people who travel into town. A lot of tourists go there. But we also need to make sure that the families, the thousands of hardworking families that are in the International District, have a voice. Right now, people think of the International District and they see the bus stops, and they see the drugs done on the streets, and they see the encampments, and they see the burnt RVs, and that's all they think of in District 6. What they tend to forget is we have thousands of hardworking families in that district that don't have a voice and that need a voice. They need to be heard. Most of those people are sadly one broken leg away from being homeless. And we need to make sure that that community is just as safe as anywhere else in the city. What happens in District 6 bleeds into the other districts, and what happened in their district bleeds over to us. There's not a fence around District 6 that stops it. We all have to work together to do best for the city. I will work hard for my community and for my district, but I will also work with all 8 other councilors and the mayor to do what's best for the city overall, so people can be proud of where they live.
Candidate Hoehn.
Thank you. So there's no question, if you look at our district, that's a tale of 2 cities. Nob Hill is far different than the east side of San Mateo. And I say the east side of San Mateo because it's not just the ID. There's other neighborhoods up there that are suffering. For me, as I said earlier, this is a matter of our city and equity. We're not making the same investments on the east side as we are on the west side. Infrastructure, lights, trees, trash cans, the police change is interesting because what the data shows across the country is that if it's a smaller area command, police can be more effective. And so, I think effective policing on the east side as well as the west side. I told people that if elected, it's very hard to do anything alone as a city councilor, right? All of us could sit here and make you promises, but you need at least 5 votes on that council. Because I would take every other city councilor and they would spend half a day with me on the east side of Central. We'd go early in the morning and we'd see the human suffering on Central Avenue. We'd go through and see all the houses that are burned out. And then I'd go back to city council with them and say, now tell me, now that you've seen this, now that you've felt this, and you can't ignore this anymore, right? We need to come together and we need to do something. And I would demand a comprehensive plan for the east side of San Mateo that has, social justice involved, environmental justice, economic justice. We have left it for too long. And I think the other city councilors are sometimes fine with doing that, but I will take them, I will show them, and I will say, look, all this is our city. And if we leave this area alone, untouched, it will spread. It will cause, to the east and to the west, there'll be those challenges. But I am not a city councilor to ever sit here and malign any neighborhood in our district. We are one District 6, and we have to be one district. There are caring people across our district who go to the ID. I knock on their doors, and the first question they ask is, Jeff, so what are you going to do about up there? Because it is heartbreaking. And I tell them, I will bring our councilors together. We will form a comprehensive plan, and we will address the issues on the east side of San Mateo.
All right, thank you very much for your answers. We've reached our final question from NMBLC. Excuse me. So every candidate for office enters into a political race with some sense that their various experiences and abilities make them well suited for representing a community and wielding political power on their behalf. So our question to you is, what has been your prior involvement with the communities in District 6, and how does that inform why you are running and what you will do if elected? What will your approach to communicating with your constituency be if elected to office? So you will have 2 minutes to respond to this one as well. Our order is going to be Ms. Greene first, then Mr. Otero, then Mr. Hoehn, and finally Ms. Rogers. Ms. Greene, please start.
My involvement has spanned years. I've been involved with my community long before city council race was even a thing. I have been in city council meetings speaking on behalf of District 6, advocating for equity, advocating for the needs of this district, especially to the east, simply because that's where we need it. I have been involved in community meetings, potluck meetings with neighborhood activists. I've been involved in IDO planning, housing forward, you name it, I've been in it. And honestly, I've been the only person that I have seen running for city council in all of those meetings consistently for all of these years. I have advocated for us. I will continue to advocate for us. So this run for city council is actually just the natural culmination of all the work that I've been doing, because I have been, like I said, boots on the ground, not leading from the front, but leading from within, working together with my community. I have not been involved with my community because it was my job. I've been spending all of my spare time dedicated to my community because I believe in it. I believe in District 6. I believe we can have a better future. I believe we all deserve safe, sustainable, walkable neighborhoods. We all deserve a healthy economy. We deserve all of this. And that is why I have been fighting. And that is why I will continue to fight for my district each and every day. I fully intend, and I've already announced that I will be retiring from a 25-year career as an independent contractor, because I believe that city council needs full-time representation. It's not something that should be done around the family, around the other job, or around the other obligations. We need somebody in there 24/7. I will continue to do that, and I will continue to be involved in every single meeting that I have been involved with from day one, whether it's neighborhood associations, city council, obviously, community potlucks, activist groups, etc. I will continue to do what I have done every day because I believe that investment is important, and it's what I've done.
All right, thank you. Mr. Otero, you're next.
So my prior involvement in the community is one, living in the community. I also, when it comes to politics, I'm not educated at all. I don't have any formal education. I never even went to high school. I just got as a GED. But what I do have is I have lived experiences. I lived in the streets of the International District. I was homeless. I was an addict. I've been in those and I've seen those things. What I do with my community is, and I've done this for a very long time, is I always set up every probably 2 Sundays a month, me and my best friend go and we buy a bunch of waters and granola bars and protein bars and stuff from Costco, and we just start going to hand them out to people in the community, talking to them, asking them what they need, if they need anything, if they need a place for the night, if they need any, you know, one of our most vulnerable now in the streets is women, homeless women that are in the streets. When I was in the streets, we had an incident where one of the girls that was with us had gotten basically kidnapped and raped, and we had to end up taking her to Planned Parenthood to get an abortion. So I've seen what happens in the district. I've lived it firsthand. I've eaten out of trash cans. I've been roughed up by APD, and you know, because I wasn't moving fast enough. So I have those lived experiences that I can bring to the table, as well as a small business owner now. I've been clean and sober now for 25 years, and something I'm very proud of. And I have a small business in Nob Hill. So I've seen it all, and I think because of all those life experiences that I have, that is what can set me aside in working for the people of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Otero.
You know what? And we need to stop for just 1 second. We're being streamed live on 99.9 The Beat, and they have to stop at the top of the hour to do a legal ID. So I've been asked to entertain the group for a few seconds while they do that legal ID. You know,
Jokes.
I don't know. Maybe I do have some jokes,
I got a
but
really good
none of them are funny, but I have a lot of them. So anyway, thank you guys. Take a little stretch. Candidates get some water, and I'm just waiting to be told that we can start again. I usually get paid when I do that.
It might be funny.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, again, thank you guys. I hope everybody, let me hear from our studio audience if you're enjoying this conversation. So let me hear you say, yeah. You guys are doing a really rock solid job. All right. I think we are done, so we will move on going to our next candidate.
All right, Mr. Hoehn.
Speak up a little bit. It's still a little hard to hear.
All right, sure. Well, so I'll do my best. I lived in District 6, you know, for over 20 years. I've been in this district. I've seen the ups and downs. I've seen it change. And in that time, you know, my commitment has always been how to talk to neighbors. I've been involved in various studies from, there's a pedestrian study along Central. There was a lead coal study. And most recently with the Nichole Neighborhood Association, I was the board president. And one of the things our board committed to do was that we were going to listen to other neighborhood associations in the district and talk to them about the needs that they had. We have a District 6, a kind of coalition of neighbors that meet. I've attended those meetings, and I've been really impressed with the diversity of our district and the things that are happening. You know, Mesa del Sol is out there, and when you walk out there, you hear about snakes and coyotes, which are things you don't hear about, right, like in the Nob Hill area. But here's what I can tell you. Every day at work, I'm at Cuidado Los Niños. It's like a community meeting. I was talking to a mom just this morning. She's homeless in the International District, and she's looking for help. So this problem is big, and I've been engaged in my community doing this work for a long time. The reason I got a Master's of Public Administration was that I knew that if I got that degree, that I could use it to help others, and that's what I've been doing. Our district is simply too important and not to be involved. Right now, our neighborhood association is asking for a series of studies on the streetlights throughout the district, not just in Nob Hill, because we see that it's dark and your crime hates the stage, so we have to light it up. The problems of our district, you know, they don't belong to any one neighborhood. They're real across our district. And as your city councilor, I will listen to all those neighborhoods, as I've always done, ask for input, and use that in order to guide, you know, all my next best steps. You know, for me, a community isn't just a word, it's a career. I've been 10 years working on behalf of the most vulnerable children and families in our state, in our community. And as your city councilor, I will continue that progress on making a difference. I have the proven leadership. I can point to a track record of results, and I will bring that to city councilor on behalf of our city. And you have my promise today that if elected, we will make the change in our district that we have so long waited for.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the repeated emphasis on streetlights as a guy who don't see so good in the dark. All right, Ms. Rogers, finish us off, please.
Thank you so much. I want to stick to your question and be specific. So my involvement in community started back in high school. I was a victim of redistricting. And I learned that I had to go from one high school to another because of redistricting. And I got mad because why is somebody else making that decision for me? And how the heck did they make that decision without the youth affected in the school board? So I started fighting for a student-led position on the school board. They still haven't done that. But next, I went to CNM after that. And at CNM, I worked to support students to make sure that they had what they need to get their education. Before that, my activism, of course, it's not just in our communities, it's also in the systems within we work. Because the systems often are the issue and the barrier to people who look like me. And let's point out, District 6 is 68% people of color. I am the candidate that reflects the community. My work has been also on APS equity councils. I know how to pass legislation. I was a part of a team that passed the Crown Act here, not only in the city, but also at the state level. So I have the experience because, guys, we're not just talking about ideas here. We're writing laws. We're passing legislation, ordinances, things that are going to affect people's lives for generations to come. So I do have lived experience as a single mom navigating all of these systems. Healthcare, I have Graves' disease. I have to fight the healthcare system to get what I need every single day. The school system with 2 children in the school systems, I have to fight and advocate for my kids every single day. This is a lifelong community service. I come from a family of community servants. My grandfather was a state fire marshal. My mother's an early childhood educator. My father's a police officer and a business owner. So I have the community experience, the lived experience, the professional experience, and most importantly, the relationships that will allow me day one. I am the only candidate that can hit the ground running. I won't have to take a year to figure it out. So thank you.
All right. That sort of concludes our primary NMBLC staff questions. And thank you, candidates, for your answers. And we invited some of our friends from the community to ask questions of the candidate pool. So we're going to transition now. I'm going to boot Jack away from my side here. And as they say in The Sound of Music, goodbye. So, but he'll be back.
Thank
He'll be back. Give him a hand. So I'm going to have everybody come up. Enrique is joining me here. He is known in our community. He's been around for a while, the executive director of the Health Equity Council, our good friend doing amazing work. How you doing, Enrique?
I'm doing well, thanks. I didn't realize I was going to be up here, so.
Well, you're up here and
Here
you're
I
ready
am.
to rock. So, Enrique, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to let you sort of give us a brief opening statement, then ask your question, and then I'll give the candidates their order. Go ahead.
Sure. So again, my name is Enrique Cardell. I'm the director of the Health Equity Council. I'm also a longtime resident of the district. I live by a recently closed ALSUPS, right? As well as, just a lot of other things that are going on in our community. I raised my children here. And, I give you all my sympathy because I know what it's like to run for office. And, you all look a few pounds lighter and more tired than when I first met you all back in the spring. And my work for the last 20 years has been in public health, focused in Southeast Albuquerque and now across the county with the Health Equity Council. And one of the things that I did when I worked for IDHCC was we began doing syringe pickups. And people would complain about the amount of syringes and the people outside. And I think really it goes to my question. Reality is that shelters don't accept people that are substance dependent, that are currently using, right? So these folks, our neighbors, many of them are not able to use the shelter system because they're currently using. There's a stereotype and a myth that people move to the international district because there's services for substance use here. I see some of the people that are out on the street and using, and some of them are the kids that went to school with my kids, right? They're kids to me just because I'm that much older, but they're adults now and they're living on the street. Some of them still come to my door and ask for a few bucks, or I'll come home and people will be charging their phone, at my door. Or sometimes, my water's left running because somebody came to get water and they forgot to turn it off. And so given that, what are your views on safe and supervised consumption sites?
And our order, I was so mesmerized by your, I was like, I'm supposed to say something now. Our order is candidate Otero, then Hoehn, Rogers, Kristin Raven Greene, candidate Otero.
Well, this is something very personal to me because when I was in the streets and I was using in the streets, there was no safe place to use and there was no safe place to drop off your paraphernalia. The misconception is that junkies are bad people. Okay, they're just not bad people. They're just in a bad spot. I do believe that we do need a safe place for people to use. You're right. Shelters are great, but if you have to test clean to get in a shelter, it's never going to happen. When they did the tiny house, when they started the tiny houses, you had to prove yourself 30 days clean and sober to get in. You can't do that if you live in the streets. It's an impossibility. The reason you're in the streets is because you're a junkie, and to be able to prove yourself 30 days sober, well, then you're really not in the streets. Recently, it has changed where you don't have to prove yourself 30 days sober. You can just go to the tiny house. What we need to do is, if we're going to do communities like shelters, tiny houses, we need to make sure to have programs in there where they can come in and we can offer them programs that are in there that they can come if they want to use to get clean and sober. We also could do, one of my kind of crazy ideas is we have the CVS pharmacy on Louisiana and Central that is just empty and no one's doing nothing with it. When I was incarcerated, they would give us 2 new pair of shoes a year. They would give us new jackets every winter and clothes when we needed it. What we could do with that CVS is we could build a surplus store where they get vouchers to come and get their shoes, to come and get underwear, to come and get, for women to come and get tampons. And they can also have a place in there where we can build showers and they can get shower coupons. Another thing that we can do in there is have a safe needle drop off. That is important. So they're not in the streets.
Thank you, candidate Hoehn.
So this is a really important question to the health of our communities. At Cuidando Los Niños, we have a licensed counselor who works with parents who have addiction, and it is real. It's gripping. And if people have addiction, then we need to be as compassionate as possible with them. So yes, I believe that we should have a safe space for them to consume drugs, but I also think that we also need to have services there available for them. So if they want to make a choice, if they want to change their lives, if we can support them in that choice, then we do so. Look, fentanyl is 75 cents a pill right now. It's coming out of China and then it's coming from the South. It is a scourge on our streets. So we need to have places where folks can use this drug out of the way so that the businesses along Central, first of all, don't have it like on the front side of their stores. I was at a business, Southwest Gems and Minerals, and people were using right in front of their store. And all the shoppers were just walking right by. If we have a safe space where they can consume, that's a twofer, because then all those businesses, all those neighborhood spaces which are being impacted are no longer impacted. But we do need to offer supportive services. I think, wraparound case management services, opportunities for a shower and a meal, and the opportunity to change your life has to be part of that. Clean needles is just or having a needle drop off is just a no-brainer. We go into our parks today and we see the needles under the benches, or they're in the grass. That is not okay, right? That's not the city which any of us want. Let's have a safe space like a Sharps box, or where they can drop those off in a place that they can use. Here's what I believe: if you encounter someone authentically, and you're a social worker, and you offer them help repeatedly, and you build a relationship, they will eventually take help. And when they take help, that's how their lives change. So I see it as an opportunity to provide services where they're using, and also cleaning up our streets.
Thank you. Candidate Rogers.
Sure, thank you. This is a great question, Enrique. And working at UNM Hospital, I've learned that this is a proven public safety approach to making sure we can keep people safe, our overdose rates. I carry Narcan in my car after my training at UNM Hospital, and I've had to use it living on Central in Wyoming twice, where my son pointed out someone who had fallen on the street and was about to get hit. So we stopped and had to administer Narcan. So we hosted these block parties I talked about earlier, and at one of them was Trumbull Park, right next to the Child Development Center. And every time we set up, we'd have to go do needle pickups. And folks that were there who were engaging in drug use said to me, well, we wouldn't throw it there if we had a place to put it, right? Now, I don't know if you know this, but we do have business owners, small business owners on the Central Corridor selling needles, right? But I asked the question when I went to look at this place and said, well, do you also have a sharps container for them to drop them off? And they did not. So we worked with them with the hospital to get them that as well. So this is absolutely a proven model for a public health approach. But the last thing I want to say is that we need to think the humanity. We need to bring the humanity back into this conversation. Folks that are out are suffering. That's what you see when you drive around where I live. It's suffering. And how do we alleviate people's suffering with the services that they need, because they're making decisions because some have substance abuse issues, but we also have lack of mental health services. And so we have to look at these aren't those people, the throwaway people, or we want to get them out of our storefronts. We need to figure out exactly how we can meet the humanity, meet them where they are, and make sure that we can connect them to the services that they need. And that's a human way of looking at this, rather than the stigma that exists with folks that you see that are unsheltered.
Candidate Greene.
I feel like this question really could take hours to delve into, because it is such a nuanced question. I have always been a proponent of the sharps containers. I used to see them in a lot of our parks. I don't know what's happened to them. We did have one over in Jack and Jill Park that unfortunately did not seem to be attended to as often as it should have been. So it would be overflowing, and we would still have needles on the grass in dangerous places. Kids can't use that park when there's needles everywhere. I stopped taking my dogs because there were needles everywhere, but that box just wasn't attended to. I do recall reading about when we had the mobile needle exchange program, that there were people who were using, one woman that would go with her dog and pick up needles because she was so frustrated by the fact that they were just everywhere. So we know that this is necessary, and we know that people will use it, and we know that people appreciate having it. So I absolutely endorse needle drop-off. I'm a little hesitant on safe and supervised consumption sites, only having just recently read about the Tenderloin District in San Francisco and how that was once a vibrant community, very active area that as they started realizing we need to have places that people can use, that they're not harassed by the police. Sadly, now it is an open air drug market. It has become a place where you see human suffering on display. And whether or not that's a good thing, I struggle with it, because I understand the need for a space to use without being harassed by police, without having to worry about whether or not you're going to be mugged or taken advantage of in a weak spot. But we also have to look at how is that going to impact the community. One thing that I absolutely believe in is housing first. We cannot be asking people to be sober 30, 60, 90 days before getting into housing, because I'm going to tell you right now, if I was homeless, I don't think I would be able to go 2 days without a beer. So I feel like housing first, then sobriety, because when you have a place to stay, you can have a place to get cleaned up.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Enrique, please. And so next I'm going to bring up a good friend, a longtime International District resident, Kimberly Obregon, and she's also the owner of Mustard Seed Flowers. How you doing, Kim?
Hey, I'm doing all right.
Okay.
Hi, Kat.
How you doing? So we're going to give you a chance to make your statement and then ask your question.
Okay.
And then after that, I'll give the candidates their order in which they should respond.
Okay, so there's live work buildings in the ID. And I had that situation. It was great. My flower shop was in the front. Me and the kids lived in the back. But the one bad thing was we had the most notorious slumlord in all of Albuquerque, and especially here in this District 6 as a landlord. And he wouldn't fix anything. There were electrical fires happening. And so I called New Mexico Legal Aid, and they said, call city code enforcement. they can come and make him fix it quickly. So I called, they showed up the next morning and immediately issued an order to vacate. And in 15 minutes of him being there, me and my kids were homeless. So that sounds horrible in and of itself, but the worst part was trying to find a place to live. I found a place to move my flower shop almost instantaneously. I mean, that was really smooth. It was easy to do. I found a great spot. The housing issue, though, was a lot deeper and harder. And I've rented, I have history of renting. I've never been late on a rent payment. I don't have a lot of income, which was one of the major issues in trying to get a place to live. Was I did not have enough income to qualify on most rental applications. Another issue was my debt to income ratio made my credit score underneath where a lot of rental companies and landlords would consider me as a candidate. I have 6 kids living with me, and if I'm going to be perfectly honest, that's a deterrent as well, especially because you have to rent a certain size of house according to how many kids you have. And so there was a lot of problems, and then on top of that, the cost for me to get into a place was so exorbitant that some friends of mine had to launch a GoFundMe to raise the $6,600 it took to get me into a place to live. And the city never really offered any kind of support. I asked, what do I do? Where am I supposed to go? And the inspector basically said, well, your landlord's supposed to pay for you to stay somewhere. I said, well, I can't get him to fix the electricity. How am I going to get him to pay for a place for me to stay? And the landlord flat out told me, I'm not paying for a place for you to stay. He still calls and harasses me and is angry because I called the city inspector. He just called me again last week, and I have been out of his space now for almost 3 months. And so there's a lot of challenges. And I know what I'm doing with housing, guys. I was a community school coordinator. I helped solve housing issues during COVID for this neighborhood. It is practically impossible now to get into a place to live. It's like I had this amazing support system of people that came around me in this community that helped me get where I needed to go. But if I didn't have that, I'd still be homeless with my kids. And every entity I called for assistance that I used to call prior to the pandemic basically told me, if you're not on the streets, we can't help you. How am I going to be on the streets with 6 kids? I won't have my kids. I will lose my kids if I'm on the streets. And, some of the places that we were put up by organizations that help with that, if I were actively in addiction, that would take me right back to that place. In the first place we were placed, there was blood on the walls. Smoke detector ripped out of the ceiling, cigarette burns in the sheets, people banging on the doors all hours of the night. And that was where we were given to stay in a safe place as a family. There's a lot broken in our system, and it's got layers to it. And so my question is, I just want to know when we're going to address the educational and wage deficits, the mental health issues, that stop creating systems that negatively impact people like me, but fail to provide basic access to human needs like housing. How does you suggest I handle the additional stressors? Because now I need to work 3 jobs to pay my $2,100 a month rent. I pay $1,100 more than I was paying in order just to keep a roof over my kid's head. And then I'm dealing with low wages because I'm a woman, I'm a teacher, I'm a small business owner, and the legal system here in Albuquerque, especially in New Mexico, perpetuates a continual cycle of tolerating substandard living conditions, corrupt landlords and property managers, and city officials who are apathetic at best when it comes to supporting families that find themselves immediately homeless. And so I just want to know, this neighborhood could be an example of how to do this well. How are we going to do it?
Everybody sort of take a collective. That's a lot. I'm going to ask the candidates again to speak up a little bit. I'm hearing that we want to be able to hear your response. So please use your sort of modified outside voice. And we'll begin Jeff Hoehn, Nichole Rogers, candidate Greene, candidate Otero, candidate Hoehn.
Well, thank you for this question. You've really hit on a lot, and very much what the story you're telling is the story of many of the families I work with every day. I'm a Cuidando Locinos. Families of a single mom with children, and they get priced out of where they are. Then they land up in an apartment and a landlord just doesn't care. So our city is making some changes. Our Department of Family and Community Services has now been split in two. And now there's an area which just deals with housing and landlords. And so what I would propose is that we have a robust landlord advocacy program at the city that speaks truth to power with these landlords and holds them accountable, because yes, they're getting away with it every single day. I see it, and it's horrible, and it's not fair to anybody. The other thing we need is a robust renters bill of rights. We have something on the books, but it's pretty thin. It's from like the 1970s, like when I was born. We need to update that and have rights for renters and actually have penalties for landlords who don't have right, like if the electricity isn't working or the smoke alarms aren't installed, because without enforcement, they're just going to keep doing it. That's a simple fact of it. Our city could be doing so much better, and this is one of the themes I have on the campaign trail. We have divested in all kinds of things, and we used to have like a transitional housing program, which was like a house that you could live in for a time as you were on the road. We have divested in that, and those were good, clean places where families could go as they kind of got back on their feet and they figured it out. We're not doing that basic thing right now. You must first be unhoused in order to get housed, and there's something terribly ironically wrong with that. We can do better, Albuquerque, by investing in a transitional housing program where folks can spend 3, 6, 9 months as they sort it out, by investing in a landlord advocacy program where we can speak truth to power with these landlords and have a have a renters a bill of rights. That's how we make a difference. That's how we become the beacon that we can be in Albuquerque and make the change, because these are our residents. We need to take care of one another. That's our charge.
Thank you. Candidate Rogers.
Thank you for sharing your story, because I'm sure that for me it's hard to share things like that publicly. So I just want to name that and just say thank you for sharing that. And I'm sad that this is not, this is more of a norm than an outlier. And that breaks my heart. So some of the things for me, poverty is something I'm focusing on because people just don't have just exactly what you shared. We need a universal basic income pilot. And our mayor has already signed up to do that and has not done it. And that's something that I want to do. And we can pay for that very easily with the city budget and actually give folks what they need to lift themselves out of poverty. I think it also needs financial education that we don't get taught in school. We don't get taught, especially a lot of folks, families are struggling with generational poverty. So you can't go to your mom and say, hey, I can't pay my rent. Can you help me out? Right? Because their parents are in the same situation. Family members are the same situation. So we have to work on specifically universal basic income. But then we also need to hold these people accountable, right? I worked really hard to get public financing so I didn't have to take money from the developers who don't want to do affordable housing or from special interest groups who don't want anybody to own anything. And that's what we're seeing across the entire country. There's concerted efforts to buy up everything so that we, the people, don't own anything. And so that's why we have to also subsidize. If we could put a program together that would provide your family with a $40,000 down payment, the financial literacy that you need to get your paperwork together, a credit repair specialist that can help you fix that, because it's a game, right? That's the new way to redline. And it's not just people of color anymore. It's also poor people in general. And so we have to do those things to lift people up and stop the cycle of renting and get people into home ownership. Because as a single mom, for me, that's what helped me, is not have to deal with these types of landlords.
Candidate Greene.
Again, thank you for sharing your story. It's definitely a lot to take in. Sadly, I have heard similar, although I think yours is right now taking the cake. One of the things that I really feel like we need to do is we need a much stronger, much more robust code enforcement. I'm actually sitting here in awe that you got code enforcement out the next day, because we've had issues in our neighborhood, again, with the Walmart, where we have contacted code enforcement, I don't even know how many times, with no response whatsoever. So I'm absolutely shocked that they came out to that. But code enforcement should be checking rentals on a regular basis. My mother owns a duplex in Massachusetts, and they have to be inspected. They have to be up to code. They have to, certain subsets that they have to follow, or you cannot rent that unit. In Massachusetts, the tenant right bill is so strong. She has 24 hours to make a repair if a tenant complains. Dishwasher is broken, 24 hours. She has to replace it with a brand new, not used model. Water heater leaking, 24 hours to replace that. We don't have that in Albuquerque, and there is zero reason that we don't have a robust tenant right program. Another thing, I believe in transitional housing that was brought up a moment ago. The model that I would like to propose for all development from here on out is a percentage-based homes. 10%, like say you have 100 units, 10% transitional housing, 10% seniors and veterans, 10% low income, 10% workforce, 10% luxury, and the rest market value. Every single unit built from here on out would have a diverse income spectrum. So we end economic segregation as well as providing transitional units. And I will agree, we need to do something to stem the tide of the purchasing of every single apartment building as a hedge fund. That practice needs to end as well.
Candidate Otero.
Thank you for your story. What we need in Albuquerque is there's so many apartment, especially in District 6. It's a lot of renters in District 6. And what we have is we have a lot of investors from out of state owning the apartment buildings and owning the homes, the duplexes, the fourplexes. We don't make them held responsible for what they have. We need to bring code enforcement in to make sure that every home, not just apartment buildings, not just, single family homes, everything needs to be brought up to date. Because if a home is up to date and a home is up to code, then it's a better place to live. It's a safer place for your kids, for you to live. And it's also an improvement on the neighborhood. It makes the neighborhood better. We need to make sure that code enforcement really pushes for that. We also need to make sure that there's programs out there to help preventative homelessness. We need to make sure that there's programs out there that you can go to say, hey, look, I am just short of losing my house. I'm just short of losing my apartment, and I don't know what to do, but I don't want to become homeless. Then the city can step up and say, yes, we have this program that we can help you through MFA, through grants, through anything. We can find ways to do it. We have such a large budget now that we could actually use that money to help people to prevent homelessness. We got to prevent homelessness, not just help it. We got to prevent it.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Yeah. I do want to say that we have one more community member who's going to share with us, and we are at our time. But this is so important. We don't elect a city council candidate every year, so we're going to continue. If there's anyone who needs to leave at 7:30, which is the posted time for the end of this forum, you may do so now. But we have just a few more minutes, and if you'll indulge us, we'd like to hear from another community member, give the candidates their opportunity to make their closing statements, and then we'll say good evening to you. So I have sitting next to me now, Adoni Rutini from the Juneteenth Renaissance Institute, and he is coming to talk to us. How you doing?
I am doing very, very well. Thank you so much for the invitation. This is a very robust, filled room. Surprisingly, my God, I didn't know so many people cared about D6.
We all care, yes. And so I want to give you an opportunity to make a statement about, tell us a little bit about who you are briefly, and then share your question.
Who I am a realtor at Simply Real Estate. I am also a UNM graduate student getting my MPA, just as Jeff. I am also one of the board members on Juneteenth Renaissance Institute. I have a creative background, so to speak. I've been through the school to prison pipeline. I've been part of gang activities. I've been a couple of jails in different cities, different states. Been homeless here in Albuquerque for a couple years. Slept in the snow. I can sleep on the concrete with the best of them. So for me, and a lot of people who I represent, all of you, all four of you, first of all, congratulations to make it this far. Okay, I know you're tired, but you look great doing it. Okay, you make tired look good. But the truth is, all four of you have Hispanic and white privilege. Okay, that is just a fact. So a lot of times, people who get elected or are going to be elected, they always talk about their big vision. big picture. So here's my question to you all. Okay. Let's consider some of the small things. What are some of the small things that you're going to prioritize? Like, for example, what are you going to do about the parks? I want to take my children to the park. I also want to allow my wife to take the kids to the park by herself and feel safe to do that. Can you all speak to some of the small things you're going to do instead of all these big things? Will you answer my phone call if you get into the office, or are you going to disappear like all the other quote unquote progressive candidates? Okay, we've already seen the progressive candidates. I'm not sold. So please sell me.
I love it.
I told him he could say whatever he wants.
Oh no.
This order, candidate Rogers, candidate Greene, candidate Otero, and Hoehn, starting with candidate Rogers.
Thank you. Thank you for the amazing question. Parks is something I've heard about a lot. So some of the small things, we'll start with parks. We, in the city, what I've learned of working on specifically parks, we have a lot of folks that are, people think the misconception that it's only parks and recreation that actually maintain and do things in our parks. It's actually not. We have Department of Municipal Development that has a hand in parks. We have Parks and Rec, of course, themselves. We have a Parks Boards and Commission who has some say over it. We have Open Space. That's a separate department that handles open space. And none of them talk together for the most part. We also have City Security and APD that are going and opening and closing the gates to our parks for opening and closing of parks. So first of all, we need to do some small collaboration of things within the city to do that. But some of the small things I've already done is organize community cleanups in my neighborhood. We worked with APD, we worked with ACS, and we've done that 2 or 3 times while not only just while I was working at the city, but before that as well. So what I want to say here, it's about community ownership and community collaboration, that it's not just up to the city to fix all the problems of the community. It's not just up to the county. It's not just up to business owners. We all have a personal stake and a personal responsibility, which is what civic engagement is all about. You know, we vote because we should. We clean up, pick up things on the floor that we see that we walk past on the floor because we should. We help our unsheltered neighbors because we should. And so for me, the small things, another small thing I want to do is I appreciate you talking about privilege, because as a multiracial woman who is lighter skinned, I definitely know I have skin privilege, but I want to use that privilege to lift someone else in my community up and train other folks from my community how to do this very hard thing of running for office, because we need to change the face of democracy, period.
Thank you. Candidate Greene.
Thank you for your question. I will probably start with parks as well. The little things or the small things are what I've been involved with now for years. As far as parks go, we had a $2 million renovation at Wilson Park. It is currently unusable. Part of that issue lies in what I've been involved with for years is the Gateway. I've been liaising to the city now for almost 2 years, discussing with them the issues that are going on in our communities and how we are being left behind. We were promised originally a 2-mile public safety zone around the Gateway. And during the hearings for the legality of the Gateway, it was knocked back down to a 1/4 mile. We are being told constantly, oh, we're going to go beyond that. We sat through a nice little dog and pony show at the Gateway where we had solid waste and everybody else saying, like, we're going to make sure that we're taking care of everything. The very next day we call solid waste and it's like, oh no, that's really not our responsibility. So I have been working with our neighborhoods to keep the pressure on the city to uphold the promises that they have made to us. And I intend to continue doing that. As the neighborhood beautification coordinator, I've been involved in green spacing and trees. We know that trees have an incredible effect on crime. The city of Baltimore has found that with the 10% tree canopy increase, there's a 12% drop in crime. City of Chicago found that if they went into inner city projects and put in green spaces, there was a 46% drop in crime and a 56% drop in violent crime just by putting in green spaces. So I've been advocating for that. I've been helping neighbors get connected with trees, and I continue to do that. I also have organized numerous alley and street cleanups. I've been with my neighbors arm in arm, hand in hand, literally picking up the trash. I can tell you right now that once you have moved an established outdoor toilet. It is something that you can conjure at any moment when you think about it. And in front of my house, I built a little free library, a dog poop bag station, a dog waste station, as well as a dog watering station, because I believe that change literally starts on the street. It starts with your neighbors, and it starts with you making a difference to make their lives better.
Thank you. Candidate Otero.
Thanks for that question. The little things that we could do right away when it comes to, we'll start with parks also, that's your question, is parks need safe needle drop-offs. We need that to start cleaning up the parks. Parks need to be lit up better. We can light up parks without actually running electrical to them from PNM. We could put solar panels on parks and light up parks, so that way parks are lit up during the winter hours when, you know, it gets a little darker. We need more patrol through community patrolling, community policing. Those are the things that we could do right away. One of the things that we could do too is we need to get into the homeless community and offer them the things that they need, so they're not going out and taking stuff from stores, right? We can do one of the crazy ideas is we can do little vending machines throughout the district that have mouthwash, toothbrushes, tampons for women, little bottled waters, things like that. And they get a card, almost like a food stamp card, and they swipe and they get what they need out of it. That's a small drop in the bucket program that I've, put a few numbers down. We could probably start that $150,000, $200,000 in a $1.4 billion budget. That's an easy start, and it's something that we can get to right away. Those are some of the things that we can do instantly to try to clean up we could do community. We can offer the homeless community, if you walk through with a trash can to pick up trash for us, we'll give you vouchers for food. We'll give you vouchers for clothes. We'll give you vouchers for, when I was in the streets, one of my most important things that I needed was a cigarette. I needed a cigarette. That would keep me at a calm level when I couldn't get a fix, was a cigarette. We can offer them cigarettes. And I know that's not a popular thing, but when you're in the streets, nicotine is very, very important. And there's some things that you have to have.
Thank you. Candidate Hoehn.
Well, thank you for the question, Amadoni. I believe that if you do a lot of small things, they add up to something big. So, speaking to parks, we don't have a lot of them in certain parts of our district. But, here are things we can do. We can change the built environment in our parks so people can't live on top of, under, or on park benches to make parks what they should be, which is a space for families. So we can do some environmental design changes that are very small that will make parks, accessible and comfortable, right, for families, but not for folks that want to use the park for the wrong reasons. Morningside Park is near my house, and I had the experience of standing with a neighbor, watching a mom come into the park and then leave because there was some there that were using drugs. That is unacceptable. That's not what our parks are for, and we can do so much better. I think there are a series of small things. I think we've all driven around Albuquerque and we've seen other medians, and there's someone on the median who is intoxicated or they're panhandling and they're a danger to themselves and a danger to drivers. We can change those medians, right? Like, it doesn't have to be like a flat sidewalk. It could be like a built up area with rocks that are cemented so you can't stand on the median, right? If we do a series of these small things around our city, then we will change the way our city is built, and we will change where people can actually be in our city. I appreciate the question on privilege, and here's what I can tell you. When I was a chef and my daughter turned 3, I decided, it was time to make a change in my life. And I thought, I do have privilege. And what am I going to do with that? Well, I went back to school and I got a master's of public administration, and I've used it for the last decade to help others. First, at the Carrie Tinley Hospital Foundation, helping children, children and families that are vulnerable with disabilities, and now at Cuidando Los Niños for the last 5 years, helping homeless families. So in recognizing my privilege, I said, I'm going to use that on behalf of others to make our community better. And that's what I've done, and that's what I'll continue to do as your city councilor.
Thank you very much. Let's give Tina a hand. I'm going to invite Jack back up to the podium, and we'll give you an opportunity for a closing statement. And we had identified 2 minutes initially. We're going to change that to 1 minute for your closing statement. And I missed my opportunity to sing "Hit the Road, Jack." But now I will say Jack is back.
Jack is back. I was waiting for it, actually. All right. Thank you so much, candidates. And that concludes our final answer and question portion of the forum. So we now have an opportunity to give you 1 minute in a closing statement to tell us why you believe you're the best suited to represent City Council District 1. We will begin our order with Ms. Greene, followed by Mr. Otero, followed by Ms. Rogers, and finally Mr. Hoehn. So Ms. Greene, you have 1 minute to close us out, please.
Well, I am not a politician, but I'm not in front of you here today because I've been in politics. I'm here because I've been leading my community all of this time. I've been involved. I have spent years working with my community, arm in arm, not leading from the front, but working together, because I believe that small steps working together, we can create a big ripple effect that will change our entire city. So I believe I'm best for the job because this is something that I've been doing from day one. I've been meeting my community. I've been working together with them. I've been listening. I've been doing everything I can to take those voices and use my privilege to bring those voices to City Council. And I intend to do that each and every day. As I said, I intend to retire from my job. I believe that City Council is a very important thing. It's how we get things done. It's how we get our laws passed. It's how we make our lives better. And District 6 deserves full-time representation, and I will give that. My name is Kristin Greene. I hope you vote for me on November 7th.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Otero, please.
Well, the one thing that does set me aside from everybody else is I'm not a politician. I just want to do what's best for my community. With the lived experiences that I have from being homeless in the streets to being a small business owner in the district, I think I have the lived experiences, and the community has supported me. We were the first to get on the ballot. We were the first to qualify for public financing. We did public financing because we wanted the community to be involved in our campaign and not big money. We need to get big money out of politics. I am not beholden to any political elites. I don't know any mayors or city councilors or anybody any favors. I'm just a small business owner that wants to do what's best for my community. And with my lived experiences, I think that I can accomplish that.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Rogers, you're next.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody who's watching, everybody who's had a hand in putting this together. And I have to say the hospitality is amazing with all the things that we need to be great in this moment. So I just want to say I'm very hopeful in what we can do through collaboration. I have lived in this community. I've worked in this community. I'm raising my children here, and I want to make Albuquerque better for them. And that's why I'm doing this. I am not doing this because I want to be a career politician, because this is not hard. This is very hard. I said that wrong. This is hard. And so for me, it's about providing hope, but being clear about what we are facing in our community and being able to use research and data for proven things that we can tweak here that'll work for District 6. I am the only candidate that can hit the ground running because I do understand the systems. But I also understand how to share power with community and make sure that you have a say in what happens in District 6. I'm also an advocate that you can count on. So I'm asking for your vote. Early voting starts October 21st, and you can vote right now at the annex.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Hoehn, you have the last word.
Well, thank you very much. You know, I know we all love Albuquerque. We're all choosing to live here, right? This is our home. But I know that our city, I can do so much better, and that's why I'm running. I am the most qualified candidate for city council. I'm in District 6. I have a master's of public administration. I know how to handle a $1.4 billion budget. I know how to evaluate programs. I know how to manage people. But more importantly than that, I'm a proven leader. For over a decade, I have run two successful nonprofit organizations that have succeeded and thrived in our community. I have that skill set, and I will bring that to our city council. Look, this election is too important. Our city's at a crossroads. You know, crime and homelessness are out there, threatening to define our city and take away our future. And so I'm asking you to look at Jeff Hoehn and elect a proven leader in November. Early voting is open. Think about this as a hire, and who would you hire in order to be your representative and to run your city? A proven leadership is what I have. It's what I'll bring to city council, and that's how we make the change that we need.
Thank you to our candidate studio audience. And then for our studio audience, I want you guys to pat yourself on the back and say, I'm good, I'm very good. I appreciate you all, and I want to say thank you to our sponsor, 99.9 The Beat, streaming live and on their website and on air. Also to our great producer, Jordana Thompson and Emil, for their hard work in making everything run smoothly. And before we conclude tonight's program, we just want to leave you with a few upcoming events. Just want to let you know that you can go to Cesar Chavez Community Center for the great pumpkin discovery. It's coming up. And last year there were about 500 people there. This is a great opportunity for us to go out and support our youth at the Cesar Chavez Community Center on October 26th. We also want to invite you to subscribe to our UpLift Chronicles. We have a monthly newsletter paper that talks about all the stuff that we're doing in the community. If you go to our current issue, we have Turn Up the Turnout. We really are going to be focusing on helping get people out. I want to mention there is same-day registration for voting. So if you're not registered to vote, you can register at the precinct and vote. And then what's November 7th? What we got, Jack?
November 7th is our election day. Just like Kathy said, you can register to vote right day of. You're at the polls, you're not registered yet, not a problem. I will actually be working the polls this year, so you might see me there.
All right.
Mhm.
And, who could pass that chance up? And also, I just want to say, if you're looking for us, we're in New Mexico Black Leadership Council. You can find us on the web. We love phone calls. You can call us at 505-407-6784. It's been a great pleasure to host you tonight, and I hope that you will go out and vote and do your civic duty. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.